Dimp Digital presents Idle Game Chat.
Cool.
Hello, apps here from Dimp Digital. Welcome to Idle Game Chat. This is Dimp Digital's flagship video game podcast where we take you through the ups and downs of the wonderful world of video games. We are here on your favourite podcast app and YouTube absolutely free. However, if you wish to support this independent grassroots endeavour, head over to patreon.com/Dimp Digital and join the community. Hashtag hand in pocket. If you want to tip us, twitch.tv/Dimp Digital is a place to go there because you can chuck your Amazon Prime membership our way and catch the podcast live occasionally and other game streams that we're up to, and it won't cost you a penny, although again that's open free to everyone as it should be. Anyway, the resident referee's back. The Nearly Man returns after going on holiday. Binned us off last week, got Adkins in, and then Adkins went on holiday this week. So both running off to do family endeavours, it seems.
Yeah, it's the time of the year when it's cheapest. Actually, to be fair, it might just be half term this week for Adkins, which is probably why he's away. I was just off last week because we just managed to get a reasonably cheap week away at a place that we go. So yeah, come back nice and refreshed. Well, of sorts and revitalised.
I've heard stressful things can happen on these holidays, but not really for me to get involved with.
No, it's relatively uneventful. Tub, like it was quite relaxing. So yeah, it's good. I'm back. I'm ready to go.
Excellent. So I've got a bit of housekeeping to do before we get into it.
Yep.
I'm not even going to mention whether we've got a loaded or quiet episode because I say that and then they never match up with the timings that in my head's there. And people are like, oh, he said you got a really busy episode and they were done in 10 minutes. And I'm like, well, so I'm going to keep that to myself. But the housekeeping to get things off, this PlayStation Stars loyalty program, I mentioned it last week with Adkins, ran through what I'd done with it, some experiments I'd run on stuff that I was going to buy anyway. So it wasn't like I handed over money that I wasn't going to at any point. And there's a couple of things I didn't know if they worked and have managed to find out that they do. So I was concerned that points, that you get back from your purchases would only be given out if you're paying through a credit or debit card, not if you're using your wallet, so the PSN wallet to top up or pay through that, because the wallet credit you can actually get cheaper on places like Shop2 and CD Keys. So you get like a £50 voucher, for example, for like £45. So that's a way of sort of making the digital life a little bit cheaper, and you do get points for that. So if you make a purchase fully on a wallet purchase with no kind of actual money taking place, you will still get those loyalty points, and you also get the points for buying lower price games. So I bought Little Hope because I hadn't got that. It's the only one I hadn't got in the collection. I played it, but I didn't have it. That was £15, and I still got points for that. It still ticked it as a full game purchase as well, so it doesn't look like they're trying to strike people up for lower price games. And then the last thing was around games that are on sale. Now I was thinking, well, this is where they'll catch you out, because if a game's on sale, you won't get any loyalty points back. But Adcock bought House of Ashes. That was on sale for about £12-13. Still received his points. So you still get those even if it's on sale. And it logged as a full game purchase, meaning that the levels that you go up for buying games and getting trophies goes up. So it doesn't seem like there's any major loopholes. Obviously, the big downfall is that if you're primarily physical, you don't get anything, as far as I know. There's no way of claiming the points. This is a digital-only kind of store jobby. Whereas Nintendo do offer the option for you to kind of put the cartridge in, and then you can go in there and say, I want to redeem my points for that. They are lower though on the Switch, so you get less for a physical purchase than a digital purchase. So they do have a little bit of skimming going on. But that's the housekeeping for PlayStation Stars. I ought to get into the FGL update because there's been 6 games come out and reviewed since we last reconvened. So let's kick things off with a couple of Logan's ones. We had Scorn and Gotham Knights coming out. Now, I'd flagged these as potential banana skins for his team, and it's looking like they're going to be said banana skins. Scorn currently sitting on a 69, so that's dropped below the 70 threshold, and then Gotham Knights sitting there on a 70 for poor old Logan. Puts him in a tricky spot for the actual FGL Grand Prix. I mean, thoughts on that? Is that a largely not unexpected result there, and that those were going to perform like that? Obviously, you want to have the positive mindset, but sometimes the predictions come true.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to have wishful thinking. I mean, you know, you've said a lot about Gotham Knight in terms of nobody wanted it, this, that, and the other, and I think it being locked in terms of frame rate and various other things have hurt it. And Scorn, I think, is a very Marmite game, and I think it's not very long. There's not too much, but it looks really good. So obviously, when people have played it, they've gone, yeah, okay. So I can understand. I don't think it's like hugely shocking.
No.
Was just expecting and or hoping one of them at least to do higher than we expected, but unfortunately, both of them have sat. I mean, I was hoping for sort of mid-70s, really, at worst. So it's kind of, you don't want them dropping down into the 60s. That's really not what you want.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, the main thing I've seen about Scorn is the checkpointing is really inconsistent. Like, it starts off at checkpoints every 10 minutes, which I think is too long. They should be checkpoint every 2 minutes, these games, but whatever, it's every 15 minutes. But as people got further in the game, it was like not doing it for 30 minutes, then 45 minutes. And then one Mr. Matty plays, he said he got, I think it was an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And then he had a bug where he fell through the floor and couldn't get out.
Yeah.
So when you got that going on, you can't, I don't know how anyone can rate it at a decent level. I mean, you're rolling the dice as the developer there, hoping that people don't run into things like that or those scenarios. But when they do, you can't give them the benefit of the doubt because you think, well, this could be for everyone. And
it all usually comes out in the wash. So it does, doesn't it? One way or another. So I think sometimes when games, I was a bit unsure about Scorn specifically because I was like, I don't know. Things that review well don't tend to come to Game Pass day one like that did and stuff. I don't know. I was just a bit warning signs there for it. I think I was just sort of trying to wish it well, and it just has disappointed.
Didn't come to fruition. We've got Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, which came out on Hall's Grand Prix team. It's a nice 73 for him. A Plague Tale Requiem 84 for Salmon. He's actually had a pretty good set of games, other than obviously Company Heroes striping him up. And we mentioned about the blower with the Lich King and the WoW Classic and whatnot. And he's sort of held his hands up for that. We speculated the other week that he'd seen the transfer fees and then just sort of blown it and made out that he didn't know. But he's claiming he didn't know, and we'll take his word on that. But he's probably out of the race just because of Company Heroes. So that's almost irrelevant. But he's now fighting to get a good spot for next year's draft, because wherever you finish will be where you end up getting your draft. And you want to be number one if you can, because you will get the first pick of the games that come through. Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope, a hammer blow on both sides, because this is one for Adkins, who has been your closest rival. That's sitting on an 86. And in the actual championship showdown, this has really put Paper in a pickle, because Parky's got that. And now Parky's going to get Bayonetta 3, which will probably score mid to high 80s minimum. And then Paper's left with God of War Ragnarok. And I think if Bayonetta scores over 70 odd, Paper can't win. Because even if God of War gets 100, it's still not going to be enough to overturn it. Because Paper, unfortunately, for whatever reason, I don't know if he thought Hall had an inside track or just thought, Hall knows what he's doing, jumped on this new Tales from the Borderlands game, which I don't know what people are playing at putting that in, and it scored a 75. And that's not really good enough at this level when you're fighting against the likes of Parky, who's putting together an average of 84. That's really going to hurt you. But it looks like the championship's going to go to Parky, The Grand Prix is a little bit still up in the air. So where we've got now is Hall is actually top, but he's had the most amount of games out. He's had 9 games out, 691 points. He's got 1 game left. Adkins is second. He's got 8 games out, 648. He's the favourite at the moment in my eyes. Biff is alongside him in third, but he's got 631 with 8 games out, and he's got Persona 5, which is not going to get a page, so he's out of the running. And really, it leaves you on 547. So the 648 of Adkins, 1 game behind. So you need 100 to kind of be within 1, and then it will come down to the last 2 games. Not all over, but it now requires something like Sonic Frontiers on Adkins' team to really go down the shit pan. I'm not even going to mention Adcock. He's blown it, so he's out the running as far as I'm concerned.
I'm adamant that Adcock just went and found the weirdest, shittest games that he could and just started throwing them in there.
Yeah. Just wanted to make it like he was actually still taking part in it and taking it semi-seriously. Well, how do you feel about that? You got 3 games left, a 101 point deficit. It's not all over, but it's tricky now.
It was always tricky, I think, anyway. I didn't do myself many favours by not having a full roster to start off with. So I was always chasing the pack. So really, from where I've come from to be where I am now, to still sort of even be in discussion, I think isn't too bad going. But yeah, I still think I've got some good scores to come, but really I needed a bit more from what I had here. But it was always a long shot.
Yeah. And just for reference, you've got God of War Ragnarok, you've got Football Manager 2023, and Pentiment. Adkins has got...
Pentiment will make it.
Yeah, that could. Adkins has got Bayonetta 3 and Sonic Frontiers.
Yeah.
I won't be trusting that Sonic, but if he gets away with it...
I've seen some of the gameplay, and it's not... It's one of them things that could easily flop, I think. I don't imagine it would be... I think if it does, it will be sort of... Lowest it will be is late 60s. I can't see it being an absolute horror show. Though there's still... I think there's still a significant amount of ground that I'd have to make up. And I'd need God of War to really come almost the same or higher than what it did previous. So, I think it's all but over, but there's always a chance.
Yeah, who knows? Sonic might get fucking binned out of the year. It's something that could happen. Yeah. There's no guarantees in this life, so we never claim it's completely over, but it's starting to heat up as things are taking place, and we'll keep you informed as the games start rolling out. Let's get into some of the news or the events that took place since we last convened on Idle Game Chat. Sony, or PlayStation, finally announced further details on the DualSense Edge, which I think, for keeping it simple, it's basically their take on the Elite controller that we've seen from Xbox. So they released a little trailer, they put a PlayStation blog up with details on when it's going to launch, how to pre-order it. So it launches globally January 26th, and the pre-orders can go in Tuesday the 25th, of October. So if people want to be going after it, they can get it. As for what you get swappable stick caps, replaceable stick modules, changeable back buttons, customizable button mapping, adjustable trigger stop and dead zones, tunable stick sensitivity and dead zones, haptic feedback and adaptive triggers as standard, controller profile settings, so you can set a profile for a game, I guess, and then switch it to that rather than having to keep manually moving it if you've got something set up for a first-person shooter versus something else. Adjustable audio, and of course the lovely case in which you can charge it in. And it's also got like braided... making a big thing about there being braided USB charging with like a little lock-in mechanism, and I was like, was that really a big thing? But I don't be getting involved with this premium stuff. I think the key word is premium here, because it's going to come in at an eye-watering 209.99, 210 UK pounds. Jim's asking for, and then if you want to get hold of the replaceable stick modules, that'll be a further 19.99, 20 UK pounds. This product isn't for me, price or otherwise. I don't see me needing this for single player games, because that's what I'm primarily playing. To me, this feels like something for the competitive player, or I don't know. I actually don't know, but I know you've had an Elite, or have an Elite, I should say. Have played through it. What's your thoughts on what Sony are wheeling out here? You can start with price, you can start with features, you can start with whatever you want. What's the high level when you saw this? Thought, well, that's the headline for me.
I think firstly, I would say that even when I play first-person shooters, I found myself using my trusty normal controller, my anniversary edition,
Fair enough.
because I like it.
Yeah.
I don't. I wanted to try out this Elite thing. It's an itch that I had to scratch, and I got it cheap on Amazon. So my Elite, I think, was about 65 quid or something, and I was like, "Well, at that price,
Yeah.
I'll see what it is."
Have a gander.
And I must admit, I don't really understand it. I don't understand. Like Hall swears by his when he used to play console, he swore by it. He used it for any game. He just much preferred it. I was just like, I don't be getting it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say it's necessarily just for the competitive lot, although mainly what people in competitive gaming use it for is the shorter trigger stops and being able to have more precision aiming with longer sticks and things like. I can understand that. Wise, I don't see price really putting people off. I think if you want it, it's something that you're going to get irrespective. And I think in terms of what Sony need to offer, they need to have that. They need to remove the reasons for you to get an Xbox. And some people might prefer an Xbox because they got that customizability on the controller. So they're kind of plugging a gap, and it's got to be a money maker. Like the markup must be phenomenal on it. I've always thought even controllers at like 60 quid that they are, I'm like, cool, it feels steep for something that's gets used and chucked away most of the time because it gets beaten up. But yeah, I think it's fine if people want it. I don't know if it's that much of an event.
No.
Does that make sense?
No, I think I agree.
Do all the bits you want to do.
Yeah.
Like they've given. It's nice that you can change some of the buttons on the back around and stuff. Like, I think they're actually going a level above over what you can do by the sounds of it on the Elite, because you can't change back buttons and stuff. You can just mess around with the sticks and the D-pad. So I'm fine with that. And I must admit, I do like some of the premiumness. It makes you feel a little bit special, like you're looking down on the paupers a little bit. I don't know if it makes you feel a little bit like that. Like it does feel premium. Like, and when I plug my Elite in to charge and it's sitting in its nice little case, there's something satisfying about it. But yeah, it's like, will I get one? Absolutely not, because I barely play my PlayStation as it is.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of giving people some of the stuff they perhaps want, it kind of. I mean, there must be people asking for it.
Oh yeah,
It's funny though, because I've always seen the PlayStation as, in terms of online competitive play. How do I word this? I think for some reason I see it as a bit more of a casual audience. Does that make sense?
Shitting on them.
Well,
I know what you're saying, because the stats will back it up mostly. Well, they will. The reason they're the market leader in comparison to Xbox, at least, I mean, you could say the Switch is now a level, if not ahead, but Xbox is because they have the casual audience. There's not 120 million hardcore gamers or enthusiast gamers. I'd say 60-70% of that is made up of casual people, and that's how you quote unquote win the generation war, is to have those people on board. So I don't think that's unfair to say that at all. By virtue of them being the most popular console out of the two, who are directly kind of competing in a lot of spaces, they will have a more casual audience, because that's kind of also what Xbox are fighting for as well. That's what you want.
Yeah, and I think the Xbox went for the casuals a bit with the Series S. and bunged all that together and said, "Here you go. Look, if you want to be a casual gamer, we'll do it at the right price with the right offering." But yeah, I am a little bit surprised. I think just because I see it more as a casual audience. But then there's always going to be, the hardcore mob. I mean, Zelena, who's one of the main competitive streamers that play Call of Duty, he was, I think, originally a PlayStation player, and streamed off his PlayStation. Might even still stream off his PlayStation. I don't know, but So there's always exceptions. But yeah, I think they've obviously priced it. I don't know if it's that dissimilar to the Elite. I think the Elite, or the Series, I can't remember what they call it now, the Elite 2, Series 2 or whatever it is. I think that's going to be pretty bloody dear, isn't it?
160 quid Curry's are offering it to me for.
No, that's the current one, isn't it? The one that I've got. Or is this the new...
Elite Series 2. How many have they got?
That's like...
I lost track of... I know they're now doing custom... names, colours on the Elite, which is quite cool. I think Hall's going to fucking buy another one to do that. Yeah. I thought there was only two. I thought they had an Elite Series and an Elite Series 2, which is the newer one. I could be wrong. Like I said, I don't be getting involved with all this sort of nonsense because, for less than 100 quid more, you can pick up the Series S and have a new console if you want. If we're comparing money, it's like that's what it comes to. Yeah, the only one I can find on the Xbox store is 160 quid. It's actually on sale right now for 142.99. So maybe that is a ploy to sneak a few people.
Hopefully, it'll be built better. This PlayStation 1.
Well, that's I mean, I've heard some. I would say if you're putting down anything over £100 for a controller, like it has to work and be robust. And I've heard some horror stories from not just online crybabies, but people that I know, like Pee-wee's had a bit of a howler with his.
Yeah, he got one, had to send it back and got a, I can't remember what they're called, A series or something like that. I can't remember, A something or other, I think now.
Yeah, I mean, eventually you'll probably get one that doesn't break, but there is a bit of a stink coming off that controller with that, so Sony should hopefully, or PlayStation should hopefully avoid that. But at 210 quid, that's, 50 quid more, give or take, RRP.
Yeah.
And
extra 25%.
I don't be doing those percentages. Never learnt it, but I'd take your word for it. No, I mean for me, it's not going to get. If it ever comes down, if I ever see it for 150 quid, maybe. But I'm just not gonna. Ronnie's gonna melt down if he has to fiddle with controller setups, and I don't even like to change the button mapping, even if it makes the game easier for me as it is. I like to just leave everything default. Like we can talk about the convenience of PC versus consoles and what consoles you just plug and play. As soon as you have to start fucking building a controller for the game you're about to play, I'm like, well, I don't want that. I'll play with the standard.
The thing
one.
is, it plays with your mind, right? Because I've had this where I've been sitting there playing Call of Duty with my Elite, and I've all of a sudden I've decided for some reason that I don't like that stick, so I'm going to change it. And you start meddling.
You think, I'll be better.
Yeah, and you start meddling.
It's like that Peter Wright in the darts. He changes his fucking darts every set.
Yeah.
Until he gets it right.
The problem is that obviously if you change your stick and you make your stick bigger, you need to then reduce the sensitivity in the game. So all of a sudden you're doing this constant calibration between the physical controller you've got and then the settings in the game. And it's it takes a lot of fettling. I think that's the thing that it's kind of like I've almost got too much choice. And I mean, I must admit, the one thing I like about this anniversary edition controller is it's got grip on the back.
Yeah, I had one of those last
that the standard one doesn't have. So this is kind of, for me, like a nice little halfway house controller, like between the Elite and...
I mean, Steve ain't got to worry about the fiddling with the sensitivities or anything. It is going to be what it's going to be. It's
the console, so I can pick it up and play it. I don't have to fiddle around with... It feels a bit too much. And then you start messing around with it and you go, oh, is that better? Is that not? And then you just forever, to your point, you're never happy with it. No. I don't think.
And it gives people a bloody excuse of why they're playing poorly. They go, I ain't got the right fucking sticks on tonight.
Well, there's people years ago before that used to get stick extenders and all sorts.
Yeah, I mean, there's a market there. Obviously, yeah, I mean, it's... I'm just saying, for me, I ain't in... The only premium controller I can see myself buying is if I saw one of these on a crazy deal that I thought, well, that's that's silly not to go with that just for the sake of feeling like I've got one over on either company. But really, on the Xbox side, if they actually ever decide to introduce haptic feedback and adaptive triggers like what the standard PS5 controller's got, I'm all over that because I love those features on the PlayStation. It really, it's something quite subtle, and I actually only notice it when I go and play on an Xbox within the next week. I'm like, this feels a bit empty. It's really, really odd. I didn't think I would enjoy what that offers so much, but I do. So if that's something they can introduce later on, I will buy it. If it comes to it being like a new Elite version is the only one that's got it, I'll be like, all right, I'll suck it up because I just think it's really does just add an extra layer to what the games that I've been playing. Some better than others. Some games don't bother really using it, but even just the standard rumble in there, that's really nice.
I must admit, I like the standard controller. I like the DualSense. Like, it's a really nice controller. I don't like the stick layout for FPS.
No,
I just don't. I just prefer the Xbox One.
Yeah.
But in terms of the build, as you say, the vibration, I like the fact that there's a little like microphone and speaker on there. Like, I think that's a nice little touch that often goes unnoticed. I do like the as you said, like the backstops and everything, and the feedback, the haptic feedback. It is, as you say, it's a subtle little addition that makes things feel a little bit different. Like when you're pulling a bow and it tightens up a little bit and stuff. Like, it's very subtle, but it's very cool. Yeah. I think I'd like to see it. It's strange, I think, that the Xbox hasn't done anything this gen really to move the controller forward. No.
Well, it's very much. I mean, Adkins and I said this when the generation first started. We both got a Series X and both got a PS5 on launch. And even when we turned our Xbox on, the dashboard hadn't changed even. Yeah. So even just that feeling of like, we've got this brand new bit of hardware, it's just like turning on our Xbox One X. And it did just feel a bit more of a continuation, which is fine. Not everything has to feel brand new. And sometimes if the dashboard is broken, is working, don't bloody try and fix it because you'll make it worse. But there was that feeling. And then obviously when we got our PlayStation, we played that Astrobot game, which is just so good at showing off what can be done with that. We was like, this feels really like something new. And it's like a little tiny bit of magic there. So I really wish Phil would look at doing that. I'm sure they are. There was rumours that they'd sent round questionnaires to people on the Insider program asking whether they'd like to see these features, and I just think, well, it's a no-brainer. Like, go for it. It's get it involved, and then you've got parity on that side, and I will happily plump down some money to get that. But anyway, DualSense Edge is going to be coming out for people there to pre-order in due course, and it's $200, okay, and then 210 UK pounds. So that exchange, that currency, that pound is in the real shitter. Unsurprisingly, given what's going on with our government and other things with this country.
What government?
I don't know what it's. By the time this even airs, it may have changed again. That's not even a. I'm not even making that as a joke.
It's entirely plausible.
That something else has happened. It's absolutely bonkers, but all good fun if you can make a laugh of it. Next one, and I'm not going to discuss the headline here, but it's a good catalyst for the subject that I did want to talk about. Call of Duty may not appear on Game Pass for a number of years due to a prior Activision/Sony deal. Microsoft has claimed it is bound by prior agreements to keep COD off the service. So this was Microsoft in this bloody CMA response to this bloody Activision deal that we're not going to talk about, but this is just an interesting side note. This is stuff that we've actually heard before, and it's come out again, and it's caused noise, blah, 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 blah. But essentially, there's an agreement, this is the quote, the agreement between Activision Blizzard and Sony includes restrictions on the ability for Activision Blizzard to place Call of Duty titles on Game Pass for a number of years. So the long and short of it is that Sony, in this instance, are paying Activision to not put Call of Duty, a game that they have paid to have marketing rights and first access rights on a service where it's essentially being marketed as free. That's the simple kind of what's going on there. We're not going to talk about the ins and outs of that. We know this is going on. I would be surprised if it's not happened in other companies that have been doing it. It's it's simply one of those things, and I can see people getting annoyed. Game Pass users really pissed off about this, saying they're stopping games coming to our service. I want the Netflix of game. Oh, you've got the Netflix of game because not everything's on that. You got what, 20% of stuff you want to watch on that? The rest of it's toss. You have to go and get 8 other subscriptions to get everything you want. Doesn't exist, this fucking reality where you just pay $10.99 and everything's on there. You have to make concessions, unfortunately. But anyway, I wanted to use this and kind of get back that away because it's all fanboy nonsense for the most part, and do some rankings of shithouse behaviour from... It's mostly Sony and Microsoft who are doing this, because Nintendo kind of get involved, but there's 2 big things that they don't do, which is like spending big money on purchases. But I wanted to kind of see if we can try and rank some of the shithouse activities that these firms do to try and make their platform seem the most appealing. And we're not going to use specific examples because then people start getting silly about it. Like, that's when the fanboy starts. It's just going to be a situation, a scenario with not going to paint either colour, red or fucking blue or fucking green. It's just going to be, this is what a company might do. So I kind of have a list of a few things that could potentially be shithouse tactics and hurt the other platforms' players. And we're doing this from the perspective of people who don't want to buy 2 consoles, which is fair enough. It's a bit bonkers to have 2, I always think, but there I am, and there you are sitting with both of them. And one will go 6 months without being played, no problem. That seems like a good investment, but others will raise an eyebrow. So this is for people that have sensibly decided to opt for one option and then don't want to, can't afford to, have got some sane level of fucking brain power going on, where you will be shafted by some of these activities that go on. So we've got buying what I call a mega publisher. So that's a big it's a big set of studios, basically. I said we weren't going to use examples, but the obvious one we've spoken about, that's kind of like what I mean by that. That's 10 times more expensive pretty much than any other acquisition that's likely to go through. So that's what I would call a mega publisher. Then you've got something like buying a publisher, a slightly smaller publisher with a number of studios or whatever. Then you've got buying a single team, a single development team. One team that perhaps has a handful of IP under their belt and they produce a game once every 2-3 years. Paying to have a game permanently exclusive on your platform. Paying to have a game timed exclusive on your platform. Exclusive content or early access to certain content. Or blocking a game from going on other subscription services. So, out of all these, what do you think would be the big ticket one that's going to have the biggest impact on the other player base?
It's got to be that big publisher. It's got to be.
Yeah, because the impact can be... well, they own the rights to the games, they fulfill all previous agreements, and then it's in their control to do whatever they like.
Yeah.
And that could mean dozens of games that were previously on other platforms that are no longer there. So that, I think undisputedly, I would also agree that's the biggest shithouse move that you can do. And look, we know these are all shrewd business practices. We know that. We're just talking about this purely from the perspective of someone who's playing on the other side of this argument. That does have the biggest impact. I tend to agree.
And I guess arguably, and it depends which side it falls on, but paying to have games indefinitely, or at least indefinitely remain on that console without being able to go over to the other, is clearly shithousery, because you either win or you lose. Yeah. Like, and there's no grey area there.
Nope.
It's
you lock it down, it's there, and that's it. You won't be playing that. That's gone.
Yeah. So you might win some, but you'll also lose some. I mean, as an example, I literally bought a PS4 to be able to play Uncharted 4.
Yep.
Otherwise it's just never going to come. It's slightly different, but that's just the reality of it. So I guess arguably that could be considered shithousery. What sort of game would you say is an example of that? Like, there isn't an Xbox or a PlayStation Studio game,
So this
but is an independent developer or publisher that's just taken
the bung.
Yeah.
I must say, people blame the buyer, the person offering the money, every single time. So in these instances, they blame Microsoft, they blame Sony or PlayStation for this. It's like, also just remember, the guys, the developer or the publisher don't have to say yes to this.
No.
If they truly gave a fuck about the gaming community, they could say, you know what, it's nice that you've offered us a bung there. We don't want to do that because we don't want to get involved in this dirty politics. Or we feel like we're going to be better off if we have it multi-platform because we'll have more sales or whatever it might be. It's always one side. It's always like, fucking PlayStation are bastards, or fucking Phil's buying everything. What a cunt. It's like, well, there are two parties doing this, and there are mercenaries out there taking the bungs and laughing all the way to the bank and making far more than what they probably would have done by leaving it. So just keep that in mind, that it's not always, they're trying their luck. Phil and Jim will try their luck. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But a game example, I would say, this is a little bit contentious because we actually don't know if it's ever going to come to Xbox, but it's been 2-3 years. Final Fantasy VII Remake. That was initially, it felt like it was portrayed as a timed exclusive, but it's been years now. So I don't know, maybe it's a permanent one, but that's an example of, if you were a Final Fantasy fan, Final Fantasy 15 arrived lovely on your Xbox. But Final Fantasy VII Remake, nope.
I suppose they'd never really say never. They'd just go, it's going to be on PlayStation.
No.
And then not say
Well, that's basically what they did. They just went quiet, and it's like, what's going on? The rumour or the theory is that Sony keep paying every year to keep it off.
Yeah.
So they keep re-upping the timed thing. But for all intents and purposes, as we stand here and record this, it's permanent as it stands, because most of this stuff is only every year, tops. I think like an early example of that would have been Rise of the Tomb Raider, when Xbox paid to have that a year's exclusive on their platform. They kind of started that trend last generation. So that's what I would say as an example, although it's debatable whether it's a timed or a permanent one. But the effect at the moment is that it's permanent, seemingly. So that would be my view there. So would you say the permanent exclusivity goes above buying a publishing arm or a developer?
Well, I think...
You're stressing him out now.
Yeah, well, it's difficult because...
It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, well, it is. I think... I think if you buy a developer, so like Bethesda or something like that...
That's a publishing arm, but yeah.
Sorry.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So say Santa Monica.
Yeah.
Like say Xbox bought them. That would be an interesting one.
They can't. Sony own them.
Well, no, but you know what I mean. If Xbox bought them, like, I don't know. I don't know whether it would. I don't know if it's shithousery because
They're putting proper money into funding it.
Yeah.
What if they bought it and then shut it down?
Can you imagine? That would be. Add that to the list.
Yeah, that would be the ultimate one. And I see what you're saying. That's seemingly with good intentions. But could you not argue buying the mega publisher is that as well? They're buying it to take it into their operation and fund it and keep it going, but they also get a nice little kickback.
I suppose we just have to go back to if you're the gamer.
Yeah.
And it's for example, at the minute, ActiBliz are strung across both, no problems.
Yeah.
That's not advantageous, is it? I guess to the gamer overall for that to be on one platform over another. No. So I think that's why you could argue that buying any developer that currently sits cross-platform, I think that's where the key lies, right? Forget perhaps where it is at the moment and using Santa Monica, but imagine all these developers that sit across them and buying one of them, publisher, developer, studio, whatever it is, you buy one that currently sits there. I think that broadly could be considered shithousery in terms of the effect on the gamer.
Yeah,
and then
ultimately
the kind of
the
sub level to that is then obviously permanent and timed exclusives, because if it's
Yes.
timed, it's a bit shit because you have to sit there with feet up until it comes
Well, I'll
across.
tend to argue that half these games are better by the time they've come to the other platform anyway, because all the toot's been ironed out. And the amount of games that play... Games are objectively better at least 6 months down the line.
Yeah,
In some ways, you're not missing anything. You're actually missing all the toot, and you'll be able to play it when it's all nicely
Well, yeah, I
done.
mean, imagine if,
Deathloop's a good example. That was a year's exclusive on PlayStation, came to Xbox, and they had added some stuff, made things a little bit better, tweaked it, but also they'd redone the ending. So you're taking absolute titles there. But if you're desperate to play it, that will not satisfy people. Well, just wait a year; they'll rip your throat out.
Well, yeah, I mean, imagine if you, as an example, you really want to play God of War. Imagine if that was coming to both, and then all of a sudden they went, pulling the rug out from under you. You'd be like, what?
It's only going to PC.
And then I'll be sitting there with my arm around you, going, "Don't worry, it'll be better by the time you get it in a year. They'll have ironed all out the creases." You'd be fucking livid.
Yeah, I would.
So I guess it works with some games that you're not particularly eager to play necessarily day one, but if you're eager to play it day one, then it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, in the ideal world, everything just plays on everything.
Yeah.
And the console is solely down to preference and power and whatnot. But that's not the world we live in.
No.
So yeah, I think like the top shithousery, really, you could argue is, I mean, I know we've talked about it, but that like a deal like Activision Blizzard's, like that is especially for the money they paid for it. Like it's just ultimate shithousery.
Yeah, I mean that's if you're on the other side of that, that absolutely is. That's the ultimate one. And then buying a publisher, so say like a Bethesda, is probably the next down the list, because Starfield next year is a good example of that. That's Bethesda Game Studios' next big game was 100% going to be coming to PlayStation before Microsoft bought them, and now it ain't. You ain't getting that. So that's another impact, because that can affect more than one studio. Developers, the next one. So Insomniac, Sony buy them. So kiss goodbye to Spider-Man along with that, which is that's a little bit strange because that's a Marvel property. And that could change one day, but anything in Ratchet and Clank, you could say that's gone. Well, that was it's a bit of a bad example because a lot of their stuff wasn't cross-platform. They seemed to do like Sunset Overdrive was Xbox only, Ratchet and Clank was PlayStation. So they were a bit mercenary. They were sort of playing both sides, but that is kind of like an example of what might happen there. I just have a really good example of that. It's just crapped out of my brain.
It's tricky though. It's interesting you referenced there about playing both sides, because it's clearly a tactic they want to employ. Like, and you'd be wrong not to. Why would you only want to limit your options?
It offers so much security. If Microsoft or Sony come along and say, we will pay you to put this on our platform, you essentially will cover the development costs. Whereas if you go it alone or go with a smaller publisher where they're like, well, we'll give you a little bit, but ultimately if the game doesn't sell well, no one's going to get paid here. And you're like, oh. Whereas if Sony or Microsoft come along, generally they will cover a lot of the development costs. So you think, well, we're sorted for this project. Hopefully we don't fucking overrun it by 8 years and give them the ump. And then if it sells well at the end of it, we'll get a little bonus at the back end of it and whatnot. And there's all other things that go on. There's definitely the way to be doing it if you can. And then if you're the owner of that, if you're the founder of that studio, and then they come along and say 400 million, you go, yeah, that's it. Thank you. You're laughing, aren't you?
I mean, you do. I mean, it's fair enough for us to sit here and go, well, you shouldn't do it. You should think about all the games. No. It's just like in the real world, people will take the, people always take a little bit less what they're guaranteed as opposed to what they could potentially get. Yeah. Like, it's always going to happen, so you can understand it.
Yeah. So we've got buying a publisher, buying a developer or a studio, permanent exclusive, timed exclusive. The last two to get in order are blocking a game from going on another subscription service or exclusive content. So Hogwarts Legacy, for example, I think has an exclusive quest. It's not very common now. I must say, I've not seen this for a long time, but usually cosmetic shit, sometimes it's brand related in that it'll be a Sony character or a Microsoft character, which completely makes sense why you won't have that in other games. But for all intents and purposes, we're talking about a mission or maybe a map on a multiplayer game or something like that that's not going to come, versus someone saying, look, that ain't going on the other subscription service for at least 3 years until we've had our fucking eating off that table.
So basically, like Call of Duty not going on to Game Pass, basically, something like that.
Yeah.
I would probably say that I would put the exclusive content over not going on to a subscription service, because you're going to get it at some point. If that's what you want to do, it's going to go on that subscription service at some point. You ain't ever going to get that exclusive content.
Well, guess what? It is a novel thing. You could buy the game if you really wanted to play it.
Yeah, exactly.
You could. You can still do that. Do you know?
No, I only play it if it goes on subscription services.
Yeah.
So, well, I say that, and I've just recently pre-ordered one. So physical,
yeah. That's where you get. That's where you can save the money.
Yeah.
Actually, I was thinking about this because we're talking about God of War Ragnarok.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if I can find you a deal where you top up your PSN wallet for £70 equivalent, but you pay less than £60. So it's cheaper to buy it digitally, if that makes sense.
I see what you mean. So what you're saying is, so when that's what you discussed earlier, wasn't it? Where you can buy like a £50 one, 45.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can do like two £35 ones for. I'll have a look.
Yeah.
I don't know why I sent you that, to be honest. I just thought, well, I'll send it on.
Honestly, I don't mind. The worst, to be fair, the cheapest way of doing it is play it, trade it.
Yeah, that is true.
Right, and then I'm absolutely quids in. Whether I will or not, I don't know.
Well, you end up playing it and leave it for 3 years, so you won't be getting much trading value if you don't get on top of it. Good lord.
If I get it day one, I don't think I'll be able to not play it day one.
No. We'll see. I'll hold you to that.
Yeah.
So actually we've gone for number 6, which is exclusive content. It's going to be that's going to be worse than blocking a subscription service. I actually think that's about where I don't think I've got any disagreements there. And I know the subscription mob are going to cry about it, but you got to realise that they are actually one of the lowest. I had done the stats months ago of Adkins. Ampere Analysis did a what's name, like a little study. 4% of the gaming market it makes up.
That's crazy.
Now, I think it included all number of two. Mobile might have been included in that. But even on the console side, I think it was 20%, which again is not the majority, not close. And then last week, we had the figures for what Game Pass had made, and someone crunched the numbers. Xbox's total revenue is 18% for the year.
Yeah.
Because again, it's not like it's 60, 70% in all these people. Like, it's actually, there's 2 to 300 million console gamers out there. There's 25, 30 million Game Pass subscribers. What's that, 10%, 20%?
Yeah.
Like, it's not actually a lot of people, but I think because in this Infusus bubble, this fucking community people live in, it feels like it's this massive thing, but it's not like that yet. I mean, I'm not one of those people that says it won't end up like that, but
most people don't want to play the two that we play. They don't want to sit there playing 20, 30, 40 hours on that bloody game.
They think it's sad.
Yeah.
They think God of War's sad. Oh, fucking losers play that. I'll play GTA Online. The geezer I used to work with, every night he's on it. Every night he's on Call of Duty. GTA Online, sorry.
Yeah. A load of people still just play all these older. Like they're happy with what they got. They don't want to go on Game Pass and go, what's this new indie game? Like, they couldn't give a shit. Could not care less. Like, why would you play that?
Play a Plague Tale Requiem about rats and this. No. Anyway, that's our 7. Mega publisher, developer, permanent exclusive, timed exclusive content, blocking subscriptions. So that's the shithouse rankings there. European Power Rankings, which is the game rankings or the game sales, I should say, for Europe, are in. So here's the top 10 for September 2022. Unsurprisingly, FIFA 23 is number 1. Number 2 is NBA 2K23. Number 3, Splatoon 3. Again, Nintendo don't give us digital sales, so hugely impressive. Number 4 is Grand Theft Auto 5. Number 5, this is the interesting one for me, is The Last of Us Part 1. wondering how this would do because A, it's only on PlayStation 5, so it's on a low install base. 2, no one wanted it, if you listen to what people are saying. 3, it was too expensive. And 4, it's a fucking 2013 game that doesn't need... That... I don't know if that's high or low for that, but I was not expecting to see it in the top 5, I would say. I thought it would be in the top 10, but top 5, that may have done better than I expected it because it has... has the lowest install base of a lot of the games that come out. I'll be really interested to see if it ranks next month. I don't think it will. I reckon it'll be fucking gone, and then that will tell us more of a picture. Number 6, Red Dead Redemption 2. Number 7, F1 2022. Mario Kart 8 comes in at number 8. Saints Row gets in at number 9. And our favourite, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, returns to the charts at number 10. So a nice boon there.
Unbelievable.
Well,
there's some really incredible games. I cannot believe that GTA is still in there. Red Dead 2 as well.
I know.
What are we doing? Well, it's unbelievable.
So I've done these power rankings, which is how many you get 10 points for finishing first in the top 10. You get 1 point for finishing 10th in the top 10. It's been going on since February. Because FIFA 2022 now is over. Yeah. It's funny to see it just die, like disappear. It's quite funny to see that.
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto 5 now takes the lead in the power rankings with 58 points. It has been in the top 10 every month that we've had this data this year.
I don't know what people are putting into it.
There's that bloke playing it. That's how it work. But he's not buying it. He's already got it. So
this is what I mean. So
who hasn't got it? Can someone fucking send me a message and say, I haven't got this yet?
Must be. It must be people buying, bucks or whatever they're called, money on it.
These are sales. This is sales for the copy of the game.
I can't believe that. Almost to the point where I want to say you're wrong. Something's wrong.
Well, look, Christopher Dring at GamesIndustry.biz does this every month. He gets it from...
I can't believe there's people... The thing is, I can't believe there's people that are buying it, and I can't believe there are enough people buying it every month for it to be in the top 10 games. It's bizarre. I mean, it's incredible, but it's bizarre.
Yeah. I mean, well done.
That must be the most successful game
ever.
Well,
single title for sure. Yeah, I think the only thing you could probably Fortnite, it gets a bit messy now with the free to play stuff because they do just make bank. But Grand Theft Auto Online equally makes bank, so it's actually doing it from both sides. It's selling these aren't GTA 5's not 60 quid anymore. It's just not. No. So this is for the number of units shifted, not the financials. So perhaps on a different ranking, it wouldn't appear so high because you're only paying 20 quid a pop rather than 50, 60 quid.
I still think it's incredible though.
Oh yeah.
It's actually even more impressive that it's on volumes sold as opposed to the money.
Yeah.
I think because it's just incredible, as you say. Who hasn't got this yet?
I don't know who these
Xbox
people are.
360 game.
It is. It is. It's not even a.
It's incredible.
Oh no.
Anyway,
that's what's going on there. It's always fascinating to dive into that and just see how wrong I am when it comes to what's important in this industry. Because
it's incredible.
It really ain't a lot of the stuff that we talk about. It really isn't. When you you look at the free to play rankings, it's even fucking worse. Right. 30 FPS Slop has made its return. Headlined by Gotham Knights and A Plague Tale Requiem, both games shipping without what's been known as performance modes on consoles. I'm sorry, if you're PC Master Race, you can quite happily audibly laugh at this entire segment because this doesn't really affect you, and it never has. And this is always a thing that, why would you be dealing with these consoles? And this is why, because we're squabbling over 30 FPS Slop making its return. But anyway, Gotham Knights and A Plague Tale Requiem, two games that are out or coming out in this sort of month period, and have both shipped without a 60 FPS option. What's interesting to note is neither of these games are available on last gen consoles. So they're not on Xbox One, they're not on PlayStation 4. They are current gen and PC exclusives, if you want to table it that way. I guess the question here is, I don't want to talk about the technicalities behind it because I don't think we know. We've got no idea how complicated it is to build one of these games, how to get it to work, how to test it, how to make sure that when you know, there's games out there, if you increase the frame rate, it increases the damage of a certain action because it's tied to the speed of the character.
Yeah, sure, I understand.
Resident Evil 2 is one of those. So on PC, if you run it at 120 frames and use the knife, you do more damage.
Yeah, that's incredible.
There's all these little.
I hadn't thought about it.
There's all these little things that can happen. But in any case, from a player's point of view, how big? Well, because we've been a bit spoiled. First 2 years, give or take, 60 FPS has been in most high-profile games. We're now starting to see 30 FPS only come in. What's your opinion on that? Do you need 60 FPS these days to be playing your video games, or would you be happy to go back to 30 FPS slop? That old mud crap, as people would say.
I think it really depends on the game. So I would hate to be playing Overwatch 2 in 30 frames per second.
Yep.
Like, and I think in a competitive multiplayer, FPS like makes a difference.
Yeah.
But if I was playing Tales from the Borderlands, like, or some sort of narrative game, or like whatever it might be, it wouldn't really materially affect, I guess, my enjoyment of the game.
What about this?
Yeah.
And actually, God of War Ragnarok has got a performance mode and will have 120 FPS mode if people have got the display for it. But let's think of something like God of War, which you've recently played, and that game that's sort of an action third-person game, not first-person. Yeah. Does that need 60 FPS butter, or can you get away with 30 FPS slop there? Considering that, and let's be honest, last gen that's all we had.
Yeah,
there's very few 60 FPS games. Uncharted 4, 30 FPS.
The third point I was going to get to was,
didn't I? Silly.
Yeah, but you were right to point it out. I was naturally going to get there, but you're right to doubt whether I would. Because actually, when I got my Series X, I was halfway through Assassin's Creed.
Oh yeah, yes. Was you really halfway through, or do you think you were halfway through and actually 1% through because how big it is?
Yeah, essentially. I hadn't played as much as I thought I had, but I played a significant amount on my old console, and then I obviously started playing on the Series X, and I was like, wow, like loading times, like the frame rate was completely like changed the game for me, and then it sets your expectation at a level.
Yep.
So if I then went back to try and play, like, I just think I'd just be like, what is this? I can't do it. I think your brain, it's like, I always liken this, right? When I used to play on a PS1, and I just accepted that as my reality.
Yeah.
Like, and you go, this is as good as it's going to get. I can't believe how good it is.
Well, you didn't have the fucking internet telling you how bad it was.
Well, there is also that. But I think my point is, if you went back to play some of those original games now, you go, how on earth did I even manage to?
So I'm not playing Metal Gear Solid ever again.
Yeah.
I refuse to tarnish it.
So you're when things progress, your expectations of what games should deliver also changes. So I think I can understand why people are like, even I got a new phone recently.
Yeah.
Right. I was gonna get a Google Pixel 6a. I was like, it ticks all the boxes. I'll tell you why I didn't get it, because the screen on it is locked to 60 frames per second. And I could get another one that's got double that, 120. And I was like, I know it will bother me, and I'll notice. So,
in that Clash Royale, them frames.
Well, no, just even in menus and scrolling and stuff, I was like, it's going to bother me, knowing that. So when the option's there, I've got options for 120 frames on my phone now. And people have got phones, and it's 60 frames per second, like the default, just on a phone. So then when you play a game, and it's chucking out 30, by almost every standard, it looks choppy and like not as smooth as you'd like it to be, and what you're used to seeing.
Objectively, a less desirable. I don't know if this is the right term. This is a bit of a absolutism, but the game objectively will play better with the higher frame rate.
Yeah, it will look smoother. It will play better.
It'll be more responsive. I don't think there's any controversy in saying that. Doubly
so. Not even just doubly. So if you've got 30 and it goes up to 60, the performance and it doubles.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even just like going from 30 to 35 frames or 30.
No.
Like, it literally immediately doubles. So, yeah, I can understand. I can understand why people look down on that now and sort of go, "That is garbage," because the simple fact is that wherever you go, I mean, my monitor's now 120 hertz, my phone's 120. Like, that's the standard. So the bare minimum really for gaming is 60.
Cool.
It is, realistically. Like, and anything below that, especially when you're doing anything graphically, or you say there's action sequences and things, it is noticeable. It just is.
Yeah, it is noticeable. And I thought this was going to happen. A lot of people seemed like, "Oh no, not everything will be 60 from now on." And I was like, don't take that approach. And I don't know if I expected it this soon, sort of within 2 years. But what's, I guess, concerning if you're 60 minimum ride or die is that there's been very few PS5, Xbox Series X only games. A lot of it's been cross-gen.
Yeah.
So they're built within the framework of the PS4 and the Xbox One to start with. Lowest common denominator, as I like to say. You can only do so much. These two, and Gotham Knights famously binned the PS4 and Xbox One version a few months ago. Went, nah, it's not happening now. So imagine how that was running. At least they fucking binned it, unlike Cyberpunk. But the concern is these are current gen titles of a very few number, and there's two of them in quick succession that are struggling.
So you're going to get onto what they're blaming it on?
No, well, it's different. They're not. People have speculated that the Series S is costing
the lowest common denominator.
Well, look, let's read a quote. I didn't know if I was going to go down this road necessarily.
I think we have to.
I think, yeah. Microsoft's entry-level Xbox Series X is limiting the potential of new-gen games. A developer at indie studio Bossa Studios has argued. Now, he's not saying the 30 FPS is doing this, but no. I think the intention is saying it's limiting it anyway, and it is a problem. VFX artist Ian McClure made the claim on Twitter. Okay. Mm-hmm. What did he actually say? Here we go. It might sound broken, but the reasons you are hearing it a lot right now is because many developers have been sitting in meetings for the past year desperately trying to get the Series S launch requirements dropped. Studios have been through one development cycle where the Series S turned out to be an albatross around the neck of production, and now that games are firmly being developed with new consoles in mind, teams do not want to repeat the process. So that tweet was swiftly deleted after a massive blowback, because obviously you get fanboys and people probably genuinely challenging that. But there was another tweet that went out. Where's the little bastard here? Struggling to get it all right. Here we go. I wish gamers understood what 60 FPS means in terms of all the things that they lose to make a game run fast. So this was from Lee Devonold, who's also deleted his Twitter account after this. Especially taking into account that we have a current gen console that is not much better than the last gen one. He says multi-platform.
Series S.
Yeah, multi-platform games need to be optimized for the lowest performer. He went on to claim that, quote, entire generation of games is hamstrung by that potato. Because Microsoft insists that the games are released on both Xbox Series S and the relatively more powerful Xbox Series X.
Yeah.
So he's right. It's swaps now, isn't it? The what's being blamed here, but I mean, what do you make of that? Because the argument is that the most popular GPU, according to Steam surveys, is a 1060, a GTX 1060. Okay, that was made in 2016.
Yeah.
But again, people don't do the extra mile. They don't be bothering. They don't actually look at what the most played games are on Steam. Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Dota 2, PUBG Battlegrounds, Apex Legends, Lost Ark, Grand Theft Auto 5, Rust, Team Fortress 2, The Sims 4. You have to go to the 10th most played game, which at the moment is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Those 9 others are all old games or low requirement on that. So you know, the 1060 thing is a thing because it's PC games are scaled down that far, but I don't know whether necessarily the games that have been played in the PC space, according to Steam's rankings, are those that are pushing the limits. And some of these console games aren't either, but you have to keep that in mind also. Anyway, I've waffled. Off you go.
Well, I just think it ties nicely in. So you've got what we've got here is a couple of games that are obviously trying to scale their game to fit on this S, right? So there's clearly an argument, or at least a link there between some developers, for whatever reason, are finding it hard to fully adapt and give everything to both. I mean, you know, like Call of Duty will do it very well somehow. I don't know how they do it, but they do.
Well, they've got fucking about 8 million people working on it.
Right, so this is
it's
a
all
difference,
it's resource and time, really.
Yeah.
It comes down to. I'm sure all these guys could technically figure something out, but
so the argument is you know, clearly if they're developing it for 2 consoles rather than 3, which is essentially what they're doing, because it's got its own set of power restrictions and requirements that has to be optimized for. What they're saying is because that thing's a bag of old shit, they're having to. It's easier for them and it's less resource intensive to basically just scale it down completely, rather than have to try and re-optimize it. So I think it's a valid point. And to be fair, I remember looking at this when I was going to get the Series X, we were talking, weren't we? And I was like, oh, you know, I can't get hold of one for love nor money. And I think I talked to you about potentially looking at an S.
Yeah.
And I think in the end, I was like, well, I don't like the idea that I'm going to get something, even though for what I want to do, it'd probably tick the boxes. I don't like the idea of something with less power.
Yeah.
Like I want the most power that's available to me. And this has just proved to me, I think, that it's not up to snuff, really. In long term, it's more for this kind of casual audience, I guess. The ones that are not that bothered about certain games or performance, or they just want to turn it on for an hour a week and play a bit of FIFA or something. I think that's what it's at. So, is there an argument then that Xbox should say these are the games when they're going through that cycle, engaging with the developer to actually say, what's the impact of having it on there? Do we want it on there? Is it critical to the strategy of the S, whatever it is? I think it's a valid point. I mean, PlayStation don't have an alternative. They just went, here's your PS5. You can have a diskless one, but there's no less powerful PS5.
No.
You've just got what you've got, whereas Xbox have done this halfway house jobby.
Fucking printer's gone off on its own. Sorry. I wondered what that was.
I wondered what was going on. I was like, is it the woofer? Like,
no, he's not doing anything. No.
Yeah. Just started
well,
so,
look, Phil's never going to sign off a mandate that says people cannot publish it and put it on the Series S. Because it's at that point, you're just essentially putting a middle finger up to everyone that's... If they said, look, fucking... Let's just use one of the... Gotham Knights is coming to Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5 only. If you've got a Series S, sorry, you can't play it. It's just not That's just not going to happen because Xbox can't do that. I don't think they want to do that either. I think they would rather the developers figured out a solution. But it's worth having this conversation, at least tracking it. I think it'd be interesting, really, to see how something like Starfield does.
Yeah,
it's coming out on Xbox and PC only, and usually with this first-party stuff, where it's designed or developed around one console at least, and perhaps a PC version, they tend to extract more performance and more fidelity. I mean, look at all the first-party Sony games, for example. They always look the fucking bollocks, but they're only ever developing it for that one or two platforms in this case. So they've got a much narrower scope of testing and all this other stuff that comes with it. If Starfield comes out and is some sort of horrendous disaster on Series S, then the question will have to be raised again, because that's one of your in-house big talented developers struggling to get a game of scope for the Series X and the power that's there to run on a lesser system. Yeah, I think that has to be I think until then they get a stay of execution, because I see both sides. Like, I understand that they should make it work for the developers. It's not lazy, but I don't agree with any of that. But you're putting out a product, you should make sure it works for all the platforms. But I also sympathise with the developers. Depends on how their engines work. They might have as many technically gifted people, and also it's time. Every extra platform has got to run through all number of checks, bug testing, fixes, individual issues that flare up only on that system. Like, it becomes a bigger job. Same question we had when they said, "Oh, we're going to do these pro consoles and series and one consoles, like the souped up mid-gen." I was like, "Fuck me! How many systems are these poor bastards going to be developing for?"
Yeah,
I don't think it's a black and white answer to it. I think it's dependent on studio by studio. Those that can eat the cost of developing on multiple platforms will look like they can do it. Those who are on a tighter budget or a smaller budget or a power vacuum, a people vacuum in terms of technical stuff, they're not going to have the resources to do it. And you're going to see cases like this. Yeah. And obviously the developers don't want to come out and say this. They want to irk Microsoft and say that fucking Series S is a lump of shit. That's holding us back. They don't want to publicly slay it because they're potentially throwing away that Game Pass money, that little gold rush that we talked about last week, where there's millions of pounds being offered to be put on that. You don't want to give Phil the arsehole.
I guess it just depends, doesn't it, right? I mean, I don't think you should feel that bad if you bought a Series S and it then ain't up to snuff. If certain games come out and they go, well, it ain't up to snuff for that, sorry. Like, my laptop ain't up to snuff anymore to play anything.
When you say not up to snuff, though, do you mean can't play it at all, just plays it in a poor state?
No. So say your example of Starfield. Say, or whatever game it is, someone comes out and goes, it needs the power of the Series X, simply. Like, we can't get our idea to work
on that
adequately to what we'd want to present to you on that. Like, why is that such a negative thing? Because when you actually think about it, it is limiting the idea and the capability of what developers can do, because they are having to cater for that lesser technology.
Mate, 1060, 2016 tech, most popular.
Yeah, but then they could just whip out and put something in. Like, I'm not saying it's excusable, but I think having a console like that impacts people like you and me. The people that have shelled out the dough, because we're not getting the full experience that perhaps we could do, because they're having to spend time, money and energy and ratchet certain elements back to cater for this console that isn't much better than the last gen console. Like, it just seems bizarre to be doing that. Does it not seem bizarre? Like, do you not think that these guys have got a point? They're going, look, this is ridiculous. You've said here's all the power, but we can't actually do that, because we've got to consider the power of the Series S. So it's holding both the PlayStation and the Xbox back, really.
Well, I always say when there's a cross-gen game, that's a compromise. Anything that's on God of War Ragnarok, that will have elements in it because it's running on a PS4 somewhere in the world. We've got the super fast loading of God of War, but there'll be moments in that game, I can almost guarantee it, where you squeeze through, you crawl through a little tunnel. And that's not the design, that's not because they want you to do that. It's because the game on the PS4 needs to load the next zone.
Yeah.
You will notice things like that. And I am in the boat that, yes, you break off the shackles and go forward. It can make a material impact. I do question how many games this realistically affects, or how many are really that ambitious. It probably is a bit of an edge case. But undoubtedly, it has an impact on design, what you're looking at doing, what you're looking at you can and can't do. Because one of the good things about the Series S, at least, it does have the super speedy SSD. So those type of design things can be catered for. But yeah, it does. I just don't. Microsoft can't allow that, though. They can't allow that narrative to be publicly displayed. From, they're not going to do it themselves, certainly, they never would, but from developers, and they do not want that story to be circular, or that excuse to be used.
No, I know,
So they're not going to, they're just simply, anyone who says that to them, they're going to say, no, can't do that. You're not doing it on a Series X then. Yeah. I can almost guarantee, I'll eat some crow happily, just for the controversy it would bring, but I just don't see a world where they sign off on that and essentially stick a couple of fingers up at the Series S users, because that wasn't necessarily what was sold.
That wasn't part of the deal.
That wasn't part
like
of the
original
deal. I still
I
think
know.
that if you're looking at it logically, you kind of wonder whether that would be part of it. You kind of think, well, I've taken a gamble there, and maybe I do lose some
long
access.
term. Maybe not in the first year or two, but I think long term,
it's
there's
gonna
almost an argument. I'm pretty brutal with this kind of stuff. Like I always think, like we're 2 years now into this gen, really. Like, piss off Xbox and PS4. Like, done. Like, it shouldn't
Off you
even
go.
be. If you want to play the new shit, get the new hardware.
Can't get it, mate.
I know there is a slight issue around that. I do get it, but it's still just frustrating that you're still, to your point there, still being hamstrung by the previous gens. And imagine doing that as a developer. You must be like, fucking hell, this is. Imagine playtesting. You'd be like, why am I playing this? That I've spent all this time and effort developing on this bag of old shit. Imagine me trying to play it on that 6-year. How old was it? 8-year-old Xbox One. Like, can you imagine?
Yeah, but
You'd just be.
the PC space is surely the example that games generally can be scaled to work on fucking, what's that, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old architecture. Like a Plague Tale Requiem, for example. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, I know there's a stark difference between minimum specs and recommended specs. All right?
Yeah.
If you've got those minimum specs, just be warned, you're in for a potentially a rocky ride. But it'll work. It'll fucking boot up, but I don't know how much gameplay you're necessarily going to get out of. I'm just going to quickly look up the year of this card, because I'm not actually aware of it. It's the GTX 970 release date, 2014. Okay, so I've got I should have done this earlier, but I wasn't expecting to turn on this. So recommended. Okay, I'm going to use the Nvidia because I don't understand AMD's graphics cards. I don't know when they're released or what they're up to.
Yeah.
RTX 3070 is the recommended. That's a couple of years old. I think 2020 they came out with that, and that's kind of like the mid-range card of the new ones. That's the recommended specs. But they are saying on the minimum specs, you could, in theory, play this on a GTX 970, which came out in September of 2014. So that's pretty good scalability. Obviously, there's other things like you've got to consider your CPU and stuff, but that's not.
Yeah.
They're not bank-breaking, stuff from what I can see there. So the argument, I mean, it happens in the PC space. So this Series S, which has the SSD at least, some of this stuff for this PC, people are playing on hard drive still. Which
it's super difficult on
Yeah.
the PC because you've got way more flexibility and customizability in terms of the options available to you to maximize what you've got.
Yeah.
With the consoles, it's literally like it's already done for you. You've got no choice really. I mean, even now it's just performance or not. Like there's no real kind of graphic settings or any variability in it. I just think there is an argument, and it might not be the case necessarily with these two that are locked at 30. It might have just been other technical reasons, and it's just coincidental. But I think they're basically saying this is hamstringing us a little bit, and I think that should be the concern. That throughout this gen, the lowest common denominator will be that S, and it will be a pain in the arse.
Yeah.
I think that is the broad concern.
Yeah,
I think.
that's fair.
It's interesting. Devs coming out and pretty much saying the same.
They have, but then they've deleted all the comments.
I don't know why.
Well, they don't want to ruffle up I reckon the actual developer, whoever runs it or whatever, because these are just staff members, have gone, don't be saying that because you'll wind
That
up.
ain't-
Especially the potato comment is. Well, there's no mincing the words there. It's like that Series S is not up to snuff, and
There's a rule number one I've found.
if
right?
you're working on a
Don't bite the
game,
hand that feeds.
if you're working on a game that you're going to present and pitch to Microsoft for a Game Pass deal in the next 3 months, you don't want him to go, well, you called this a potato, and then chuck that across the desk. You're going to be sitting there. There's all a little bit of politics going on and whatnot. It's
Definitely.
covering of
Yeah.
arses.
I'd say so. I mean, I know, but it's like I think it adds credence to it, like them literally saying this is causing us some problems because it's not up to snuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think most are more inclined not to mention it in public at all because of what I've said. So to see that some people have tried their luck and then evidently either thought better of it and been told to pull it shows.
You'd be frustrated though. Like imagine your game coming out and everyone going, it's 30 FPS shit. You go, well, hang on a minute. I'm having to build it for this piece of old toss. What do you want?
Yeah. It's a tricky game. I wouldn't be surprised if a Plague Tale Requiem eventually got a performance mode. And maybe at that point, it's the other thing I said, it's time. It's like we can technically do it, but you want this game to come out in the next 2 months or the next year if we sit there toiling away trying to get that working. So I think
you got Peppa Pig with a performance mode. So what are we doing?
Well, the fidelity on that is amazing. That'll be up there for top graphical powerhouse
experience of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, we have waffled, but that was entertaining, so it was well worth it. How do we do about the next the game that they're going to hear about to close out the episode? That's the real concern. It's going to be a beefy episode. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to do it in chronological order because there's stuff sitting there that's been rejected. So far, Changing Tides. Going to pull that in.
Okay.
And that's going to be dropped in to see out the episode. If you made it this far, thank you. But you've still got another 20 odd minutes or so to go if you want to hear about Far Changing Tides and whether that makes its way into the coveted Dimp Digital Gaming Gallery. But we're going to take a pause just now and we will see you on the other side. Here we are then, back with some gaming impressions of a video game that you can play today. This time it's Far Changing Tides. I'm going to share my opinion of this little known game that I played on Game Pass, and our resident referee Logan is here to keep things ticking along, stop me from rambling, and hopefully extract some useful information from myself. So I'll hand over to you, Mr. Logan, for Far Changing Tides.
Yeah, so another, what I would probably put ignorantly in a palate cleansing pile.
Yeah, it was.
If that's fair, going through the Game Pass wardrobe, seeing what's in there and getting all the palate cleansers out after some long games you've played lately.
Yeah.
So on that basis, I presume this is kind of in the indie territory. I know nothing about it. I even said to you, what is it called again before we did this?
Yeah.
So it is pure ignorance.
Yes, it's very much an indie title developed by Okamotive, who before this game came out had no idea who they were, and published by Frontier Foundry. And yeah, I had no idea exactly who the creators were, what the game really was, other than, again, I'd seen buzz knocking around on the interwebs in these enthusiast circles, and noticed it was on Game Pass, so earmarked it, knowing that I would, quite enjoy a proverbial palate cleanser to come down the pipe, and this was, that this fit the bill absolutely. I will read off some of the description, not all of it, it's a big one again, but just to try and set some expectations of people and give you a little idea whilst you probably scramble to look at screenshots or whatever you're trying to get in front of you there to get an idea of what this looks like. But Far Changing Tides, an atmospheric vehicle adventure that follows the emotional journey of a boy and his ship as he embarks on a voyage to find a new home. Sail stormy waters, dive unknown depths, and explore forgotten ruins in a beautifully realised flooded world. And it says here, an all-new companion title. So right, there's the blower. For once, one of the very few times I didn't do research, I didn't realise this was a follow-up to an existing game. Otherwise, I likely would have sought out the original. Yeah. So expanding on the desolate setting seen in Far Lone Sails, Changing Tides swaps the sun-scorched, dusty plains for stormy skies and high seas. With new environments, puzzles and ship mechanics, the world of Far Changing Tides brings an exciting experience to fans of this beloved series and new players alike with bigger and deeper challenge. So,
That's sloppy from you. Unusually
oh
sloppy.
mate, I was absolutely beside myself when I found out after I'd finished playing it. And so much so that I went back and watched a playthrough of the original just to get an idea of it. And, you know, you can see the transition from this to the other one. They share a lot, but they're also very different as the description sets out. Like one, you're a ship, which is what Changing Tides is. And this one, in Lone Sails, it's more of a vehicle using, you know, just with wheels and whatnot. So that's the setup there. I was fuming that I didn't suss out this was a follow-up. That really did hurt me. But needless to say, the deed was already done by that point. And you couldn't do much about it, so I just kind of tried to have some booze and let Ronnie forget about that. But it's a 2D platform-ish game. You know, you wander around, you can pick up things, etc., etc. But the main gist of it is you're going from left to right on an unknown journey, really. You kind of just wake up and you're like, well, the world's fucking flooded. So you're on your own. It's like, well, I need to get out of here. And you find this vessel, this ship, and it will only go right. So you've only got one way to go. So you just headed that way. It's quite like the simplicity of it, that you're always just travelling in one direction.
Yeah.
There's a clever thing they do with that in the game throughout as well, which is really cool. But you need to keep the ship moving. Obviously, one of the easy ways to get a ship moving is sails. So that's fine. Like there's wind, you get the sails, but you will get to areas where you can't sail anymore, and you need to seek out upgrades for the ship. So there's like automated rowing things that you can pick up. But in order to, that's a bit more of a hands-on approach. So the idea of the game is to kind of get you from left to right, and you'll be hitting obstacles. Usually you'll unlock a new feature of the boat that allows you to do different things, and therefore requires different management techniques to keep the boat going in the direction you want it to. So with the sails, for example, everything's very mechanical. With the sails, like you pull this big thing back and it pulls up the mast itself, clicks into place. So it's all very physics based. Then you go up there and you grab the wire, you attach it to a little stern thing on the boat, and then you move that to control the direction of the wind. So you have to kind of manage that and keep the flag in like a sweet spot so that you're catching the wind as you go. With the rowing parts, it's basically a coal fucking process. So you need to be putting stuff into this fucking furnace, burning it up and using fuel to keep the thing stirring. That's a different process because things can overheat. You kind of jump up and down on the air part of it to blow more air into it to increase the speed at which you're going, but then things get hotter quicker. So you're always kind of juggling these plates of getting to move. So you've got two main elements. One is getting the movement of the boat using these very mechanical options that you have, resources that you might want to burn up, etc. You've got to manage that. And the second is when you hit an obstacle, it's like, okay, you can dive under the water as the person, so you can get off the boat, swim around, find, I don't know, you might find like a little switch that opens the gate. It could be that simple. But often there's more complex kind of ways to move the boat through a facility. You might have to figure out how to get a lift working to drop it up, and you know, there's all these different types of obstacles for you to solve, not just going from left to right. And there is not much guidance given to you in this game. You are essentially, even to work the boat, so it tells us to jump longer. I think it tells you how to pick things up, and after that it's like off you go. So you have to work out how the sails work. And what I like about that is that I can see that being frustrating for people, but it does a really good job at communicating with symbols and colours what you kind of need to keep an eye on. So it's quite satisfying working out the exact mechanics of each thing. But yeah, very nice progression, you know, building the ship up and whatnot. And some decent-ish puzzles and small exploration for you to go off and do.
So it's ultimately a little puzzle game with some mechanic-based elements to it, I think, by the sounds of it. So the gist of it is that you're pretty much, well, solving a puzzle in terms of how to work the bloody thing, and then solving puzzles to overcome obstacles and keeping everything ticking over.
Yeah, and it has several banana skins that you'll slip over as you go through. You know, you could say, well, why surely just use the sails all the time because you haven't got to burn resources for that. It's like, oh yeah, absolutely, I'll be using the sails, but then if it starts thunder and lightning, guess what? You've got a mast up there. It's attracting the lightning. That gets struck down. Then you have to resort back to other things. There's always changing the environment and the situations you're in so that you're using all the different sort of upgrades and options that you've got. And I think that is, well, it stops it from being mundane and boring, isn't it? It's quite relaxing at times. Like once you've got the ship going, it's like you can sit back. It's got some nice, like, subtle music playing. Ships sailing along in the sea. That's all good. But in terms of the story, I mean, again, I said no handhold, and again, it's one of those ones where you kind of understand what you're doing because you're just doing it. Like you're going from left to right. You're clearly trying to find somewhere, but you don't really know what. Well, you know where you're doing it because your current home's fucked. So you're just trying to find a new place to go. But other than that, there's no real breadcrumbs there.
Narrative.
No, there's no text or anything. There's no dialogue, nothing like that. The character doesn't speak. It's all just sort of played out through environmental storytelling, and like you'll come across facilities, and there might be like a mural up of, you know, what people were doing before. Then you go, oh, maybe that was a coal factory before because it's got the pit. It's that sort of stuff that's going on. I still don't know why the world's gone all dusty and then got wet all of a sudden. It's climate change, I guess, but that's not really shoved down your throat. So it's kind of just happened, and you're just dealing with the consequences of it, which is what will happen when it eventually floods Canvey.
Well, that won't be no great loss, unless we've got listeners from Canvey, which we might do.
We probably have.
Can't afford to lose a significant portion of our viewership.
No.
The one or two people from Canvey that might be listening. I mean, interestingly, on the description here on the old Xbox, it says optimized for Series X and S. 4K Ultra HD.
Could have fooled me.
60 FPS plus.
Yeah, it runs fine. There's no technical problems with it. I quite like the style they've gone for and that type of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to set the world on fire, but it certainly holds its own. And for these sort of more artistic games, it fits the bill nicely. There's nothing to criticise on the only thing I would say, and it's not really a technical thing, it's more of a design thing. The auto saving is too sparse.
Right, okay, that really bothers me. I'd rather they overdid it than underdid it.
I don't know why they keep doing it. I don't know. It's a common theme in most games. Like just every 90 seconds, I'm fine. Honestly, I wouldn't mind that at all because I don't think you can die in this game. I jumped off some pretty big heights, and he just sort of goes, caw, then gets up. So I don't think you can actually die. But I like to. You can't just exit the game and save. It's a checkpoint system only. And there was a couple of times I was like, I need to go and do something else. Yeah. And I was waiting for the checkpoint to come, and it just wasn't coming. And it was like, it took like 15 minutes. And I was like, yes, I could leave the console on Phil's fucking eco power mode or whatever he's put in now. I could have done that. But you just know if there's a power cut or if this game doesn't play nicely with quick resume. You've got a chance of losing progress. So I was forever just checking the autosave icon and being like, right, there it is, bang. I don't know why there's no, because like I said, you can't die and lose progress as it is. It's like, why not just make this checkpoint far more often? People can't get themselves into a fail state, one would assume, otherwise there'll be some uproar. So what's the problem with that? So it definitely needs to save more often. Too sparse for me when I've got, especially when I'm coming to an end of a session. I like to just be able to just go when I feel like it. Whereas this, I felt like, well, no, I've got to finish off this little task.
Just needs a manual save, doesn't it? Yeah. There's no excuse for not having just a exit and save button. No. Like it should be standard fare, in my opinion.
I agree.
I mean, it does look quite cool. I'd probably say it looks a bit mono. Is the word monochromatic? Like it's all a bit dingy.
Oh yeah. It's definitely got its own look and atmosphere to
Quite
it.
cool though.
Yeah, because it's
the art style is cool.
yeah. I mean, it's clearly set in some sort of post apocalypse that's happened.
Reminds me of Waterworld.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not far off. I didn't see anyone with gills knocking around, like any mutants, but yeah, it does have that feel. I mean, it's an interesting concept, and I especially liked that once I'd gone back and watched the lone sales playthrough. There's a few extra layers in there for people that have done that. Whilst when I first played it, I had no idea, and I was like, "Oh, yes, that's good. I enjoyed that." And I went back, and I was like, "Oh, there's a little bit more there if you've gone through that process and been there since the first one and played it." It's one of those interesting lines where it's not reliant on it. It's not they call it a companion title, which is an interesting word. It's not it doesn't say sequel.
Yeah,
which is an interesting way to describe it, and I think that's probably actually quite accurate. Having seen now the first title, is that it is more of a companion rather than a continuation, which it certainly isn't. It's just set in this same universe and world, and there's just a little bit of reference and crossover there for longer term fans to enjoy. But yeah, far changing tides, pretty good.
So is there anything else you want to touch on this game that you think is would be important for people to know?
I don't think so. No, I think it's we described what it is at nauseum, and I think you're going to need a bit of patience because it doesn't tell you where to go. I mean, like I said, you can only go right, so you got to get past this obstacle, but it won't clearly say
exactly
here's the item you need, here's the switch you need to. You kind of have to work things out based on previous knowledge. You understand how different switches and other things work, and then through trial and error a little bit, like I'll press that, what's that do? Oh, that's a hose for water. Maybe I can fill this object up and then it'll be a counterweight on there's all that sort of stuff going on, and there is definitely times when I don't mind this, but I know this drives people fucking nutty, but I was sitting there like, what do I do next? And that is something that some people don't want to go through. I don't mind that too much, but I know it's one of those things that people just like to be playing the game, but I was enjoying being stumped and being like, And then you experiment, and then you eventually get it, and you're like, oh, excellent, how clever am I? Or stupid, I've been there an hour, and that's why it's not fucking checkpointing.
Sometimes you do just have to understand the game and the developers and how their brain works in developing some of the puzzles. I've found that with some puzzle games before, is that you're looking at it from how your brain would have created or solved that problem, and you have to almost figure out and understand how the people that develop the game think and would solve that problem, and how the game works to be able to then do it, if that makes sense. Rather than like me just going, well, I'll just put a great big fuck off bit of wood on that and counterweight it there. They're going, well, no, you've got to be cleverer than that and more subtle.
Yeah.
I think that sounds about right. Okay, well, that kind of brings us to my personal favourite part of these reviews, second to us reading out the game description and likening the game to it. But walking up to the doors of the Dimp Digital Gallery that we've come to love and respect so much of late.
Yes.
And the usual decision when we walk up to the doors as to whether we unlock them and walk in, or whether we turn away and go, absolutely not, nothing else is getting in here today.
Yes.
So the first question that we do on the doors is, does it enter the gallery?
Yeah, absolutely. Far changing tides enters the gallery for sure. The gaming gallery will be better off to have this game in there for sure.
So which wing then? You've got a choice of 4: platinum, gold, silver or bronze. Which one are we walking down today?
I think we're gonna keep it safe and go with the silver because it is a good game. I wouldn't say it's necessarily great, but it's got very few, if any, issues for what it is. It's really solid. And I guess the biggest compliment I can pay to it is that I want to, with Separation, go back and play Lone Sails, even though I've seen it and whatnot, but go back and play that. And then if they do another entry into this, I'm there. I'm waiting for it. It's on radars. So, you know, a lot of the time I'll play something that I've had no experience with or something new. You play it and go, if they do another one, fine. But if not, I'm not too worried about it. I would actually love to see another iteration of this. And I'd be really interested to see if they do and what the vehicle's going to be this time. Maybe.
Yeah. It'll be a different one, another companion type.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, so that's the biggest compliment I can pay to them is that I'm going to go back, buy both these games, probably on PC, just as a future-proof platform. And play through them both. Probably do a stream on both of them, but we're talking a little ways down the line.
Yeah.
And then if they do a third game, I'm all in. But if they do something else, I'll follow them on Twitter, so I'll get wind of it and probably be just looking and thinking, well, let's see what else these guys have got. So yeah. lovely little experience. That's the true palate cleanser, because it was a nice new fresh game and developer I wasn't familiar with. I felt like I learnt a lot about what these guys can do at Okomotive, guys and gals, and now awaiting their next project in what will probably be a few years from now. But park it in the Ronnie brain and he'll dig it out when it's time to start investigating.
Yeah, I think that'll make a good stream. Actually, I'd like to tune in and watch that. But yeah, interesting. Yeah. Another one gets a seal of approval into the silver, the cramped silver.
That is easily the most popular wing of the gaming gallery for sure. But I do think most games kind of fall into that category these days. Like,
you see, I'd be more inclined to be, for some reason in my head, if something gets in there, then unless it's, I think there's more of a distinction between silver, gold, and platinum than there is between bronze. So I think bronze is entry level stuff.
Yeah.
And then you start getting into big boy shit in silver, gold, and platinum. That doesn't mean this sort of stuff can't get in there. I think bronze is the most underutilized.
Yeah, possibly. But I mean, earlier on in the year we did Pokemon Legends Arceus, and that was sitting in the bronze wing because it just had so many caveats that came with that in terms of like the performance and whatnot. And I feel like things like this, just when they meet my expectations but don't wow me, that's where they'll go. Whereas a bronze is like, yeah, I'd still, I still enjoyed my time with it, but there was definitely a few things that just stood out and got in the way slightly. Whereas I don't think, if nothing gets in the way, I'm happy to give it to the
silver,
chuck it in there, and see what they think of it. But these, I'm sure these wings will evolve over time, and it'll be interesting to see the makeup of them. Everyone's different opinion. There's going to be games in the gallery that are sitting in different wings from one another because of other opinions being there. So you might, we might be seeing two lots of this one day. Someone else might pick it up and chuck it in the gold category, or who knows. Anything?
I guess not a Biff game.
No, not a Biff game. Yeah, that normally means most stuff's pretty good. So. You'll find most Biff games being like in the bronze level where there's just a catastrophic issue with it, but he just likes the mindlessness of it. But enough slagging him off. Poor boy. Anyway, pack up for the week. We'll speak to you, all you guys, when we're back next. As usual, thanks for making it this far. We appreciate you spending your time with us. And if you want to take the extra step, patreon.com/dimpdigital is there. But do not feel pressured to do so. Not one of these outfits that says, "Oh, we can only do it because you're paying us." Well, all got fucking jobs. So I mean, if this was bringing the income and the only income, then I doubt I'd even be affording a PC. So you don't need to be worrying about that for now. But it'd be nice to have a few more beers to put in storage for the big celebrations. Anyway, waffling. Nothing more for us to say here other than thanks for your time and ta-da.
This was a Dimp Digital production.